Welcome back. This is part 3 of 3, the final edition of this 3-part series, Diagnosing the Left. Let's jump right in.
So they're not saying anything to you. So you don't see it. They're not talking about it. So you're oblivious to it. But you know who isn't oblivious to it? The normies. The normies that aren't in the bubble that you're in, that aren't listening to the media you're listening to, and all these ideas, Medicare for all or whatever, right? They're not in that bubble. Those folks that are not in that bubble, what they see is that for all the yelling and screaming that you guys are doing, right? They don't really see the benefit of your rhetoric. Because a lot of stuff you promote is inefficient or basically ineffective. Because there is no diagnosis happening, right, from your thought leaders of how good are these things, how can we make them better, other than more of it, right? I'm not saying that doesn't happen at all, but generally speaking, that's not a conversation, right? So what that leads to is a bunch of people promoting policies that may have good fundamental ideas behind them. A lot of people going bankrupt because of healthcare, right? Addressing that would be great, right? That would be a wonderful thing. That can help the economy, people that are in medical debt, if we can see the positives of it, right? But because the ideas you push for are always, not always, but many times, they're like beta ideas, experimental, theoretical, right? Again, they lack the analysis of, and it's a constant thing, it's not a one-time thing. You do something, you do an analysis of what worked, what didn't work, right? You do more of what works, less of what doesn't work. You address the flaws, and you get better and better over time. And as you do that, that's how you build the product, right? Look at the policies as a product. And a lot of times the left pushes out beta products, right? You have this idea of, let's have a phone that will last for a week on a charge. And everyone's out there pushing, phone should last for a week on a charge. Phone should last for a week on a charge, right? And it sounds good, has a nice ring to it. And fundamentally, it's like, yeah, that seems logical, right? So, the thought leaders get on board and keep repeating it. Again, they're not digging into it. And then you are relying on them. So you're hearing them saying it, and then you're repeating it. That's what your tribe is saying, right? Phone should last for a week, right? That's what you're going around saying, right? And then, you fight hard enough, and you actually get this phone passed, right? So now we're going to build this phone that's going to last for a week. And then your thought leaders tell you about how, thanks to you and your donations and support, 5 million people got these phones that last for a week on one charge. And you sit there and you feel happy, like, great, look what we've accomplished, right? Our political opponents, they're talking nonsense. We're talking real stuff that matters. And look what we did. Look how we delivered. Before, everybody's phone was dying in a day, less than a day. Now, we have all these phones that last for a week. The problem is, in order to make the phone last for a week, we added a battery that is the weight and size of a brick, literally. So a bunch of people are walking around with these big ass phones that can't fit in their pockets. It's falling and hitting their toes. People are dropping it and it's smashing things, and all kinds of problems are happening. Women walking around, you got a brick in your purse. I mean, it's causing so much pain, right? But the thought leaders you watch are not telling you about these things. All they're saying is, look at all these phones that we got out there, and they're lasting for a week. Look at before. Look at the data. The data says phones were lasting for a day. Now they're lasting for a week. And that's thanks to our progressive policies, right? Now the normies who aren't in your bubble, who haven't been fed this rhetoric of phones for a week, blah, 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 all they're seeing is, who came up with this stupid idea of a brick phone? And it's like, oh, it's those progressives. Oh, those guys are crazy. They're radical. They're too extreme. Look at what they're doing. This is so dumb. Who came up with this idea? This is so retarded, right? But you don't hear any of this, right? All you're hearing is your thought leaders telling you how smart you are and, how great your policies that you promoted are, right? You're in the dark about the gaps and the issues beyond, we need to do more of it. So what's the overall effect? The overall effect is that mainstream media can better paint you guys as just radical extremists that are pushing too far. I mean, look, this is the stuff that you want, and look how dumb it is, and look how it's not working, right? Some of that stuff will be lies and misinformation, but otherwise, they can point out valid stuff, right? The failures in your policies. I mean, look at right now, Joe Biden, right? You got people on the liberal side to talk about all Biden's accomplishments, yet he can barely compete with Donald Trump, 4-time indicted, right? The left needs either, most of you guys need to get more independence, right? Do your research, spend the time to try to comprehend and understand and come up with your own ideas rather than just repeat whatever the popular narratives are. Either that needs to be the way, or you guys need to push for more serious thought leaders, right? If you're going to depend on thought leaders, you're going to constantly be failing, because in the social media influencer age, your thought leaders are just absolutely garbage. They're not serious, right? They are too isolated from your experience. They're on a different path from you. They're on a path to becoming elites while you are struggling to pay your bills. So either you guys need to step up and fend for yourselves and get more involved, and then push back on these thought leaders, push back on the politicians on an individual level, or you need to be more critical of your thought leaders. Don't just assume what they're saying and what most of the thought leaders you support that they're right. Don't assume they know what they're talking about. Don't assume that they're telling you the full story. Be very, very skeptical of what they're saying, what they're promoting, and dig in on what they're doing, right? Try to get as many perspectives as possible, right? You want to get a perspective from everyone involved. Like, for example, in my situation, as a landlord, most people on the left have no clue of the landlord perspective because, again, their information sources are very limited, right? The scope of information you get is limited to evil landlord, capitalist, whatever, trying to squeeze the little man, blah, blah, blah. That's all you know because that's all you're given by your unserious sources, right? But if you stepped outside of that scope and learn more, you might recognize some problems in the things that you're promoting. And the other issue is when you guys get so emotionally charged and riled up with, like anti-capitalist rhetoric, for example. So anything that it remotely sounds like capitalism, right? So you can't even have a conversation, right? Like, let me give you a basic idea. One of the most extremely difficult things for me to discuss with a typical left-winger is to get them to understand, not necessarily agree with, but understand the landlord perspective, right? They have been so trained in this anti-capitalist rhetoric that their brains will shut down the minute that, oh, you're a landlord, oh, blah, 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 and this and that, and all that stuff that they're spitting out is the stuff that's been fed to them. Like, we need less parrots on the left, more original thought, more skepticism from your left-wing influencer sources, and more open-mindedness. There's no reason why. I mean, you look at someone like me, who, I'm not saying anything crazy, I'm prepared to defend my positions. I can argue with honesty, right? I can make a thorough, defense of my position as a landlord. There's no reason why I should have a difficult time sharing my viewpoint as a landlord with a typical left-winger, right? And the fact that it's an extremely difficult thing is problematic. It's like basically the left has been radicalized, right? So it's the equivalent of trying to talk to a right-winger about socialism, right? You see, and again, this is the value of my independent viewpoint, right? I'm not radicalized, right? So I can listen to a left-winger talk to me about socialism, even communism, right? I can rationally and calmly listen and understand their point of view. Certainly have some critiques for sure, but I'm not going to be like, socialism, they kill people, like that's a typical right-wing person that's been radicalized, right? You left-wingers are radicalized in the same way, in a similar way, right? Anti-capitalist rhetoric, right? So your ability to comprehend information outside of your bubble is extremely compromised because, again, The minute that you hear something sounding capitalistic, your intellect shuts down, your reasoning shuts down, you get emotional, knee-jerk, and it's this hysterical, right? Anyway, those are my thoughts. Hopefully it wasn't too all over the place. Hopefully people understand where I'm coming from, and hopefully you find it helpful, right, to hear, hopefully more important than all that, hopefully you're even interested in hearing a new perspective and in hearing an outside perspective about the things that you believe in. Hopefully you are open-minded enough that you even have interest, right? Totally disagree with everything I said, man. You think I'm the dumbest guy, I don't know what I'm talking about, I think I'm not a normie, but basically I got normie brain, I'm a boomer, whatever it is, totally fine. But if you at least had sincere curiosity and interest to hear an outside perspective of your ideology, congratulations to you. You represent a very small portion of the left. Please try to recruit more people to that, position in terms of being open and being rational and not being emotional, right? Not letting certain buzzwords get you all bent out of shape. You know what I mean? Like socialism to right-wingers or capitalism to left-wingers. This is the Baby Channel. The Baby in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think about my critique and diagnosis of the left and what is wrong with the left? And if I didn't make it clear, how the left wins is in getting better thought leaders who are more serious and more vested in the things that you're concerned with, therefore making their viewers more educated on the full perspective, therefore making them aware of what's working and what's not working. So you don't just push for certain policies, you push for them being executed properly, right? I don't just want Medicare for all, I want free housing, whatever the thing that your tribe is pushing for. You understand the fundamental problem and you see a suggestion of a way to solve it, but before you promote that suggestion, you interrogate that suggestion, you ask questions. Well, what about this and what about that? And what about people who such and such? And you know what I mean? And also, you are very open-minded to hearing any critiques of these things, right? A lot of bad faith critiques for sure, but don't just assume every critique is a bad faith critique. Don't have this emotional reaction. Right-winger says something, you're right-winger. No, listen to them. I mean, what they're saying is bullshit, then call it out, but at least hear them out. If they're appearing to be rational people. I mean, the person obviously is a nut job, then that's different. But don't treat a seemingly rational person who's being respectful and rational to you and sharing their position. Don't treat them as if they're the nut job, extremist, radicalized person that's just, if they're talking to you respectfully and they're, defending their position, they're not just saying vague stuff, engage, right? Maybe you don't agree with all of their critique, but maybe there is a fundamental part of their critique that you can agree with and recognize, and then you can advocate for the solution for, right? A right-winger points out a flaw in your housing for all ideas, and then that can make you think, and you're like, wait a minute, there's something here, right? I don't agree with the solution that the right-winger is presenting, but I recognize the problem. So I'm going to, try to advocate for solving this problem, recognizing that no one else on my side is, and everyone else is just going along and nodding there, right? Don't be a lemming. Just because everyone on the left is walking off the bridge doesn't mean you need to walk off the bridge too. That kind of behavior you would mock from the right. Lead by example. How about that? All right, guys.